Hi everyone. This lecture is on Chapter 22, Environmental and Applied Microbiology. We will be talking about microbes on our planet in this particular lecture. So when we talk about microbes on our planet, we're talking about two overlapping areas. The first of which is microbial ecology, which is the study of microbes in their natural habitats. And then applied microbiology, and this is the study of practical uses of microbes in water and food processing, industrial production, and biotechnology. And the reason why these two areas overlap is that most natural habitats now have been altered by human activities. So humans have intervened in many of the natural settings. For example, the changing of the Earth's warming and cooling cycles. Also, we have put increased waste into soil and pollution into water. And this will, of course, have altered the basic relationships, most of them, between microbial, animal, and plant life. So, when we talk about microbes on our planet, how do we study or identify microbes living in the environment? And scientists have been using a technique that is used in the Human Microbiome Project. And in this case, they're looking at microbes in the land or on the land, in water, and in air. And so with this, the environmental genomics has revealed many surprising and shocking things. For example, bacteria living in glaciers, so at extreme colds, and then even bacteria that have been found living deep under the sea floor. And if you remember, with the Human Microbiome Project, much of this had to do with the sequencing of microbes and then identifying them. So let's start out with soil microbiology, and this will talk about the composition of the lithosphere. So at that microscopic level, the soil. And it's a dynamic ecosystem, and it supports a ton of different interactions between geological, so the rocks that are involved, chemical and biological factors. And there are tons of microbes. This is where we're going to find just a huge amount of microbes. And it serves a dynamic role in the biogeochemical cycles, so the breakdown and buildup of different biological agents, chemical, geological, all of these things are going to have a role for microbes to play. It's also an important repository for organic detritus and dead terrestrial organisms, so kind of what we typically would think of as waste. This is a place where we can have it deposited. So when we look at the soil, we're really looking at a habitat for many different things. This is showing the root of a plant, and at the root of this plant there is going to be sand and rocks, many different kind of geological elements, and then we're going to have small insects like mites, and we're going to have some nematodes, perhaps some protozoa, different types of organisms, and then at a very, very microscopic level, you can see here they're talking about just this tiny circle here, and it's been blown up. We then have bacteria, and it's actually almost in its own little environment with some clay, organic materials, and perhaps some different types of hyphae from different fungi. So this can show you then how amazing the ecosystem can be even at this microscopic level. So that's the soil habitat. And then also I want to talk a little bit about aquatic microbiology too. So when we're sticking to this environmental microbiology. The water on Earth occupies nearly 3/4 of the Earth's surface, so we really need to start out with a hydrologic cycle, and hopefully this is review for most of you. This begins with surface water being exposed to the sun. We get evaporation. Also, plants can lose moisture. Aerobic organisms will give off water when they go through respiration, and then this airborne moisture will accumulate in the atmosphere as clouds. And it's from these clouds then that water is returned to the earth through either condensation or precipitation. And clouds will release this rain and snow when the particles of water are too large for a fine mist of the cloud to support. And what they end up doing is these tiny bits of water, these tiny particles of water, will begin to come together around tiny particles called nucleators, and they will then form a raindrop or snowflake. And what research has now shown us is that it's, generally speaking, it's bacteria that serves as this place for water to coalesce or to come together, causing most precipitation. It's kind of a neat thing to keep in mind about bacteria, that they cause rain and snow. So when we talk about aquatic microbiology and we think about our water, what water we generally use, the majority of the water used for drinking water comes from what is called an aquifer. And this is deep groundwater source, and it circulates slowly and will replenish surface water. And it can resurface through many different avenues, through springs, geysers, or hot vents. And as I said before, it's the primary water supply for 1/4 of all the water used by humans comes from our aquifer, which is when you hear often people talking about the importance of an aquifer, you can see why that plays such an important role in our life. So when we do talk about that hydrologic cycle, so the cycle of water, the actual amount of water in that cycle has not changed over millions of years. What has changed, though, is the distribution of water and the quality of water, and these have been altered by human activities. So the things that we worry most about and the most serious problems that have arisen with aquifers are that they have not been replenished as quickly, and this has been due to the fact that they get depleted through well drilling, land development, and persistent local droughts. So our aquifers are not replenishing as fast. And then also the second one, which is also worrisome, is that because water picks materials up while it's falling through the air or even moving through the ground, the aquifers are where we get a lot of pollutants that are collected, and that can be a real problem of trying to clean that water then. So the last little bit I'm just going to go over briefly, and that is on different aquatic microbiology, which are different environments. We have the marine environments, which would be the ocean. And I just want to make some generalized points here. The ocean exhibits a huge variation in its salt, its depth, the temperature, the hydrostatic pressure, and then mixing, so the movement of the water. And because of this, it supports a huge amount of bacteria and viruses. And samples from around the world have yielded 6 million new genes and thousands of new proteins. So if you think about that, the size of the ocean, this makes sense that we would have this variability, but it's still a really impressive number. And then the last environment I want to talk about within aquatic microbiology is freshwater environments. And the freshwater environments is also a site of huge microbiological activity. And this is because the microbial distribution is associated with sunlight, temperature, oxygen levels, and nutrient availability. And in freshwater, you can imagine from a river to a stream to a lake, the difference that we would see of sunlight, temperature, oxygen, and nutrient availability, which then would lead to this great microbial distribution. So hopefully this gave you a general overview of microbes on our planet. We'll be moving into a couple of other subjects in the next couple of lectures.